What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ragnarok Gaming, and I have exciting news, something that I just am ecstatic for. So, my favorite MMO is Final Fantasy XIV, and of course, in that same regard, the next expansion's coming out. With the next expansion coming out, which is Shadowbringers, we've been kind of waiting for the benchmark to be able to see the Viera and the Hrothgar. We also been waiting for the Jobs trailer to see kind of what the roles are looking like, what the changes are going to be. Even though it's very slight, it's still one of those things that we as a community have been looking for. Now, Stormblood has been having it not necessarily as ups and downs. It's definitely one of the better expansions, of course, that I've personally dealt with, especially coming from WoW a long time ago, back in the Wrath of the Lich King. And now coming to Final Fantasy XIV, of course, I've been a part of Final Fantasy XIV, I believe, since I think it was a year into Heaven's Ward, actually. I started coming into playing as an archer, grew to be a bard, of course, and that was my main through the original set, all the way through high-end Heaven's Ward, and now going all the way through Stormblood. And I am a ranged physical DPS main, so I've always been and always will be that. Now, lately I've been kind of getting into some of the other jobs, but there's one in particular in Stormblood that has been kind of getting the very short end of the stick for me personally. There is others as well who have been getting short ends. Shout out to RIP, Monk and Dark Knight and Stormblood. Now, of course, that's opinionated, of course, but in my opinion, Dark Knight and Monk have definitely been eh. They've been kind of up in the air, not much synergy, and not really working cohesively as their kits used to be. But there is one in particular. You guys may know this because it's definitely the laughing stock of this expansion specifically. It is Machinist, becoming one of the most clunkiest jobs ever, and coming from Heaven's Ward when it was actually better than Bard at the time. And even though that was the case, Machinist still, to this day, gets laughed on or clowned on because they're like, it's just a cheap Bard. And there's nothing to it that you really can do. And it's clunky and it's hard to understand. It's hard to get through. And to be honest, I can kind of sympathize with that. I've grown accustomed to playing some of the odder jobs, just because for me, in Heaven's Ward I played Bard. That was my only job I played. I did have other jobs, but that was for the cross class when they had those. But when I played Bard in Heaven's Ward, it was not really that good. It was actually frowned upon to play as a Bard back in Heaven's Ward. It was actually preferred to have a Machinist in your party versus a Bard, since technically they both do the same exact things. There was no true utility that was different between one or the other. However, the damage output was higher on the Machinist side, and as well, you don't have the cast times. So where Bard Heaven's Ward was kind of messed up was with Wanderer's Minuet. Makes your abilities hit harder. However, you're now a casting DPS at this point. Even though you're ranged physical, you were a caster. And it became really hard to sell the idea. Now, of course, I ended up joining an FC that really liked my Bard, and I appreciate that. Now, of course, with that being said, we're now in Stormblood. We no longer have the same issues between Bard and Machinist that we did way back when. So, of course, there's going to be differences between the two that are very, very prevalent. For one, the Bard is no longer caster. It is very even distributed between damage and support. It does very well at this. So, when we're looking at it, Machinist is more DPS focused. So, as you guys may know, the newest job trailer just came out, and unfortunately I don't have the footage for you, but I will have some gameplay in the background of Machinist in general as of right now. But in general, from what I've seen, they have completely redid everything. And I literally mean everything. It doesn't look like, one, I don't see a ammo gauge, so I don't know if they still have the reload and quick reload. So that mechanic may be very well gone from what we've seen, because a lot of times they show every part of the kit first. So that's what the point of these are. One, and there's another thing, I do not see the turret. So the turrets don't show. Either one, they're thinking that we already know Machinist has turrets, and that we should already default that they will have turrets. Or two, they've scrapped the idea of them having a turret and now replace it with this new system with a new gauge. So you do have a heat gauge, but you also have what looks to be like a machine gauge, more or less. Some of your new abilities, new combat abilities, increase that gauge. Once it hits 100, you can summon a mech, technically, a mech summon, very similar to, the Bahamut for the summoner and the new Phoenix for the summoner, which also looks great as well, that does damage. And what we also noticed is from what we've seen so far, is that it no longer looks like you can overheat the gun in the same way that we have been doing in Stormblood. So for one, that's intense, because that means we have to scrap everything we know about Stormblood. Stormblood Machinist needs to go right out the door, and we now have to really think about it as we do have 3 jobs in Shadowbringers. We have Gunbreaker and Dancer, and now we have a completely revised and new Machinist that it looks brand new. The abilities, though, may be similar, and as well have some that have carried over. It looks like they've gotten rid of some of the other abilities. Now, some of the main things, it doesn't look like Hotshot exists. So the buff for Hotshot, maybe the ability still exists for the dot, but it probably doesn't, maybe adding a dot, but it doesn't look like it gives a buff, which was the whole purpose of Hotshot. The reload and quick reload mechanic does not look like it exists either, because I did not see a single round reloaded, and normally they would show that at least, or at least have the audio cue, because of course every job has an audio cue for every ability, and Machinist is no different, especially with it having a gun. It's very, distinct. So, with also having not just a flamethrower, but it looks like a poison thrower, whatever it is, where, you're spewing poison like the flamethrower. So the thing I can think of is that that's going to be a dot that you have to maintain. With that also being said, you also have to take in consideration that now we do have an overheat type mechanic, but it looks like you build the gauge, take a portion of the gauge, overheat the weapon, and then use your as much abilities as you can, with also packing a wildfire. But it looks like overheats down to 6 seconds, which the issue back in Stormblood, or now in Stormblood I should probably say for now, is that with overheat is only 10 seconds long. And that also, you coordinate that with your wildfire, which is also 10 seconds long. So the fact is, to start packing in so much damage in such a small period of time became very stressful. But there was nothing to build towards. And that was one of the biggest gripes for Machinist. There were issues with the fact that you could not do pretty much what you weren't building to something. You had, I got mad damage from just overheating my gun, pairing a wildfire, pumping all of my cooldowns into it, and then having another 60 seconds of just like you're relaxing and going through the motions at this point. Pop Hotshot to refresh it. You'll have another thing of reload. You'll have 2 more Gauss rounds. I've kind of figured out the rotation at this point, but there was nothing to really build and keep. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still enjoy, playing Machinist, and I genuinely love the lore of the Machinist, and I love the idea of the Machinist. However, I do think that with this new iteration, we're going to get a brand new job. It's pretty much a brand new job at this point, and that's what we need to treat it as. And I really am excited because there are a lot of things that are going right for that job alone. So for it to do it this way, for them to just completely scrap, Machinist as a whole and just give us a brand new experience, that to me shows that they truly care about every single job individually. And that also means, Dark Knight was also an additional laughingstock of this expansion. Monk's not really a laughingstock, it's not synergistic, I guess you can kind of say. There's really no other job that can pair well with Monk in a way. Very much like how Bard Machinist pairs well with Dragoon, and like Samurai pairs really well with Ninja, or anything that's slashing damage pairs well with Ninja. So, like, in general, there's no synergy because there's no other blunt resistance. There's no other blunt, unless you're counting, like, certain shoulder tackle or, things like that. There was nothing that can pair with it. So, the synergies and things like that, I mean, Monk it's still strong, it's just not a laughing stock like some people thought. I think it's still a decent job. I just also think that it struggled a little bit in this expansion with some of the changes that they did with the job. But now that I'm looking at, Shadowbringers, this is probably going to be the best expansion to date, to be honest. Now, of course, we know there's going to be more expansions down the road. So, this, to me, and it speaks a lot for me, actually, because, like I said, I came from WoW. And coming from WoW, and WoW was like, I was with WoW for a while, a long time ago, like years ago. And like I said, it was back when Wrath of the Lich King just started. So when Wrath of the Lich King just started, that was one of the best expansions to ever exist. And of course, now I've adopted to being part of the Final Fantasy XIV community and loving the Final Fantasy XIV community with a full-hearted passion. In essence, this is definitely looking at how they treated the jobs themselves with so much care, so much differences, and the fact that they knew Machinist players were getting the short end of the stick in Stormblood, and they wanted to give Machinist players a second chance, or they more or less just wanted to make it up to them. Like, hey, we love the job. We love every single job, and we realized that what our ideas were for the Machinist was not to everyone or your liking. We're going to revise the whole entire job. We're giving you something brand new, and we hope you like this iteration. And to be honest, from what I've seen, it looks good. It looks very promising, and I will honestly say full-heartedly that Machinist is definitely going to be in competition. Because before, we were always worried that Bard was still going to be on top, Dancer was going to take over for Bard, and Machinist was going to be left over the wayside. Because, in essence, I don't imagine Dancer is going to be massive DPS. I imagine Dancer is going to be more focused on support, with DPS on the side. And that's why I said it's going to take Bard's place, because Bard would necessarily take over Machinist for damage. Damage and partial support. But, of course, we don't know the ins and outs still of Bard's kit. Now, I'm a Bard main. Technically, I'm a ranged physical DPS main, but Bard is my very first job, so I'm more well aware of Bard than I am of any other job. So, looking at the kit, we're not 100% sure where Bard's kit is at this current moment. So when it comes to Bard, I really do think that with Machinist's brand new changes, granted, it's not going to be a support. It's going to have. I think it's still going to carry the role actions. They did mention role actions are still going to be a thing, so I imagine tactician and refresh are still going to be prevalent with between all of those jobs, with range physical DPSs. So, in all honesty, I do think at this point, when I'm looking at it and seeing what I am enjoying about watching that trailer, Machinist is going to be very strong. I think it's going to be a damage powerhouse, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to play. It's going to be a lot of fun to master, because I think that's really going to be the tough point there. Is it going to be fun to play? It looks awesome to play. That's already a point in my book too. It has to be fun to play. It has to be good. It has to look cool as well. And as well, you would necessarily do good pieces with lore. It has to fit within their lore. And I feel like the Machinist job does all of those 3 points. And I'm very happy and proud to say that I will definitely be playing Machinist in Shadowbringers. And I'm very excited and really ready to, play it all the way through and master Machinist and become, and show that it is possible. So, with that being said, that is my 2 cents on the new information we got from the trailer, and as well, not only just the benchmark, which I will make a separate video of, and make a separate video of my opinion on it, and how I really enjoyed it. But yeah, so with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I know I'm very inconsistent at this time, but currently I have been working with stuff outside of not only work, but also outside of YouTube that have been more mental issues. So May was mental health awareness, so I want to make you aware that yes, I have been going through some stuff personally with mental illness. And I am working through it, and I am currently, getting some help with it, and it's great. So I'm hoping to keep this going because it's definitely very fun, and I miss doing it. So I'm going to be trying to continue to do this and more or less giving my 2 cents, potentially making guides to kind of like get to the point of where you're ready for Shadowbringers. If, like I said, you want to stay tuned for more, go right and hit that like button and subscribe button and the notification bell, just so you are aware whenever I do upload. So with that, I do hope to see you guys all on the next one.